Okay, so I want you to picture a scene for a second. Let's say you're at a really loud, chaotic restaurant. It's peak dinner rush, plates are clattering, people are shouting over each other. You know the vibe.
Oh yeah, total sensory overload.
Exactly. And then a waiter drops a tray of glasses. Smash. Silence. Everyone flinches. Heads snap around. Adrenaline spikes.
Right. It's a universal reaction. We're wired to react to that kind of sudden disruption.
We are. But here's the thing. In that split second where everyone else is flinching or craning their necks, imagine there was one person in the corner who doesn't move. They don't jump. They don't look. They just exist. And suddenly that person becomes the most interesting thing in the entire room.
Absolutely. You've just described a very specific phenomenon. We usually use lazy words for it, things like charisma or the X factor. But if we look at the source material we're analyzing today, it's actually something much more engineered. It is called high-definition presence.
High-definition presence.
Yeah.
Sounds like we're upgrading our TV screens, not our personalities.
In a way, we kind of are. It's a form of perceptual engineering. The core concept we are doing a deep dive into today is micromotion communication.
Okay.
It's the idea that by mastering absolute granite-like stillness, you can use millimeter-scale physical adjustments to create a massive sensory or psychological shock in the person watching you.
So it's not about being the loudest voice in the room or having, the biggest hand gestures. It's actually the exact opposite.
It is precision over volume, and the sources describe a specific two-phase structure to this whole thing. They call it the climb and the drop.
Okay, let's break this down because the climb sounds like a hiking trip. What are we actually talking about here?
Think of it like audio engineering. If you want a sound to pop, you don't necessarily just turn up the volume, you lower the noise floor.
Right.
The climb is your baseline of absolute stillness. It's this magnetic, noise-free presence. You actively strip away the fidgeting, the nodding, the foot tapping, that anxious energy most of us carry around.
Which is incredibly hard to do, by the way. I mean, most of us are leaking energy constantly.
Exactly. We're always moving. But when you stop moving, you create a vacuum. The person looking at you, the observer, has to actually increase their sensitivity just to read you. They lean in, they focus harder because there is no noise to distract them.
You force them to turn up their own internal game.
Precisely. You have their nervous system on high alert. And that is when you hit them with the drop.
The high contrast shift.
Yes. Because you have been so unbelievably still, a microscopic movement, like a pupil dilating, or just a 1 millimeter tilt of the chin, carries a massive communicative payload.
So because the background is silent, a whisper sounds like a shout.
It hits the observer like a thunderclap. It is entirely about contrast.
This is fascinating, but I have to ask, is this just like theatrical theory, or is there actual biology backing this up? Because it sounds a little bit like a Jedi mind trick.
It really does, doesn't it? But the sources are very clear on this. This hacks our hardware. It all comes down to mirror systems and the concept of embodied simulation.
Embodied simulation. That sounds like virtual reality.
It's basically the brain's internal VR, yes. We have a shared circuit in our brains. When I see you do something, my premotor and parietal cortex activate as if I were.
So if I see you take a sip of coffee, my brain is sort of ghosting.
Exactly. But it goes way deeper than just physical movement. It connects to visceral feeling. There's a fascinating study mentioned in the research involving the IFO, that's the anterior insula and frontal operculum.
Okay, hold on. That sounds like a car part. What does the IFO actually do?
It's the part of your brain that lights up when you smell something truly disgusting, like rotten eggs or spoiled milk.
Yeah, the gross out center.
Right. But here's the kicker. That exact same area lights up when you see someone else express disgust. You don't just cognitively know they are disgusted. You biologically simulate their visceral state. You feel a ghost version of their nausea right in your own gut.
Oh, wow. That explains why we wince when we see someone wipe out on a skateboard. We aren't just sympathetic, we're literally simulating the impact.
Yeah. Yes, and that specific reaction is the anterior cingulate cortex, or ACC. It lights up when we see a loved one in pain. It simulates affective distress. And the sources also mention tactile empathy.
Tactile empathy, like feeling someone else getting touched.
Exactly. Seeing someone touched creates activity in our own secondary somatosensory cortex, the SII.
Okay, so bringing this back to the climb and the drop. If I'm sitting across from someone who is holding this perfect, tense stillness,
your brain mirrors that tension. You feel tight, and then when they finally release a tiny bit of that tension, maybe they just relax their jaw jaw by a millimeter, you feel that release in your own body.
It's like they have a remote control for my nervous system.
That is exactly how the sources describe it. Because the observer is simulating the communicator's state, that tiny, precise movement acts as a command. It's a permission slip directly to the observer's nervous system.
That is slightly terrifying, honestly. It sounds incredibly manipulative.
It is influence in its purest form, and humans have been figuring this out for a very long time. This isn't just some modern invention.
Right, the outline goes way back. We're talking prehistoric times.
Think about the ingenious hunter. To survive in the ancestral era, a hunter couldn't just be quiet. They needed absolute stillness to blend into the environment. The sources call them a motion microscope.
But if they are perfectly still, how do they communicate with the rest of the hunting party? They can't just wave their arms around to point at a deer.
They use the drop. The sources mention substrate-borne signaling. They would use microvibrations, like a rhythmic tapping of the heel on the ground.
So the signal travels through the earth, not the air.
Exactly. No sound, just a vibration that the other hunters feel through their feet. Absolute visual stillness, but a clear, loud signal.
That is literal life or death communication. And let's jump forward a few thousand years. The sources mention Queen Elizabeth I. Now, I imagine her court was a terrifying place to be.
The Virgin Queen. She was an absolute master of the climb. Imagine walking into that throne room. Hundreds of courtiers, but the center of the room is a vacuum. She maintained this frozen, regal demeanor. She made the entire court wait inside her stillness.
And her drop.
It was minimal. A barely imperceptible chin tilt, or an icy dilation of the eyes. That tiny shift could signal a fatal judgment. It was terrifying because the baseline was so incredibly rigid. If she had been fidgeting or waving a fan, no one would have noticed the eye dilation. But because she was a statue, the movement was deafening.
It creates that high-stakes environment where everyone is walking on eggshells. Who else did the research point to?
Miyamoto Musashi, the legendary duelist.
Oh, the Book of Five Rings guy.
The very same. He achieved a state called no mind. Picture a duel. Most people are bouncing, their adrenaline is pumping, their sword is shaking. Musashi would stand with total relaxation, almost indifference. That is the climb.
And his tie in a sword fight.
A millimetric grip change on his sword, just a tiny tightening of the knuckles.
That's it.
That's it. But that tiny tightening triggered instinctual fear in his opponents because their mirror neurons picked up the lethal intent before he even swung the weapon. He won the fight before the sword even moved, and Napoleon used a similar tactic.
Napoleon. How so?
During councils, he used immobility. He would sit completely still while everyone else argued. His drop was a slow head turn or a slight chin lift. It signaled to the room that a decision had already been made, and all the arguing was pointless.
It seems like the common thread here is that the person with the most stillness holds the most power.
There is a great concept in the notes. Stillness stores pressure. Motion releases it. If you want to hold power in a room, you have to be comfortable storing that pressure.
Let's bring it to the present day. We see this in acting.
Actors are the best case study because they manufacture presence for a living. Look at Mads Mikkelsen.
Oh man, Hannibal. He is genuinely unsettling in that role.
It's predatory stillness. He doesn't act with big, sweeping gestures. His micromotions are facial tensions. A slight eye narrowing, a tightening of the jaw. It signals a shift from civility to lethal intent without him raising a single finger.
It's the same with elite magicians, isn't it? But for a totally different reason.
Right. People like Ricky Jay or Teller. They use dead upper body stillness to lower the observer's awareness. If I wave my arms, you look at my hands. If I'm totally still, your brain relaxes. You stop looking for the trick because there is no noise. That allows them to perform sleight of hand that is felt rather than seen. And Mark Rylance does this in theater too.
Mark Rylance, the actor.
Yes, he uses a less is more approach where a 1 millimeter eye widening conveys total internal devastation. It's incredibly powerful.
Okay, so we have the history, we have the neuroscience, we have the creepy serial killer actors.
Yeah.
Now, let's get to the part everyone is probably wondering about. How does this apply to regular life? Specifically, the sources go deep into negotiation and dating.
The mating negotiation.
I have to say, that is the absolute most unromantic way to describe meeting someone at a bar. Welcome to the mating negotiation.
I know it sounds incredibly clinical, but if you strip away the poetry and just look at the biology, it is a negotiation. It's a marketplace, specifically regarding short-term mating and sexual selection. Attention is the currency.
So how does high-definition presence help you in that scenario?
It starts with genetic signaling. The sources talk about the alpha still baseline. If you are twitchy, fidgeting, checking your phone, looking frantically around the room, that signals high cortisol, stress, anxiety.
Which, generally speaking, isn't the vibe we're going for when we want to impress someone.
No. Stillness signals high testosterone and low cortisol. It signals genetic calm. It also avoids what evolutionary psychologists call sexual overperception bias. That's when you misread friendly cues and look way too eager. By remaining neutral, you become a blank slate that the other person projects onto.
Okay, so you're the statue. You're cool, you're calm, but you have to communicate eventually, or you're just the weirdo staring at them from across the room.
Correct. That is where the verbal decoy strategy comes in. This is brilliant. You keep their conscious mind busy with low-resolution words while your body communicates high-definition intent.
Walk me through this. How does it work in practice?
Imagine you're talking to someone. You say something playful or challenging, maybe you look like trouble. That's the decoy. The words are engaging. But while you say it, you perform a still kiss. You turn only your head to look at them, keeping your torso anchored away.
So your words are saying, I see you, but your body is saying, I'm not chasing you.
Exactly. It creates a gap between what they hear and what they feel. It creates intrigue. You aren't leaning in. You aren't pleading for attention. You are broadcasting intent without any neediness.
But we can't fake everything, right? I mean, surely there are biological signals that you can't just engineer.
Yes, the unfakables. These are the honest signals governed by the autonomic nervous system. If you want to know if someone is actually into you or if you are successfully signaling interest, these are the absolute gold standard because you cannot fake them.
What are we looking for?
First, pupil dilation or mydriasis. It's an involuntary expansion due to dopamine and arousal. If you look at someone you love or a really good burger, your pupils dilate.
Okay, pupils. What else?
The vasocongestion flush, the reddening of the chest, neck, or earlobes.
Blushing, basically.
Essentially, yes. And the carotid pulse. In moments of high attraction or intensity, you can sometimes actually see the heartbeat visibly pounding in the neck.
So if you're using high-definition presence, you're watching for these tiny signs in the other person.
You're scanning for them, yes, but you can also trigger them. The sources mention lock-on techniques.
Like the vagal lead that was in the notes.
Right. This relies on entrainment. You use your own breathing. You exhale twice as long as you inhale. If you do this while focused on someone, you can actually lower their heart rate. You calm them down, which makes them feel safe and connected to you.
You're literally hacking their heart rate with your breath. That is wild.
It's biological conducting. There's also the 3-millimeter lean. It's a shift in weight, a pressure change, rather than actually changing your position. It pulls them in. And then there's the pupillary push.
This one sounded a bit risky to me.
It's a test. You move into their intimate zone for exactly 2 seconds, then you retreat. You watch their eyes. If their pupils dilate when you step in and stay dilated when you step back, you have a lock.
But if you stay too long, you're just a close talker.
Timing is everything. 2 seconds.
Now, does this work the same way everywhere? Because I assume walking into a corporate boardroom requires a very different energy than a first date.
Absolutely. The context completely changes the application. We have competitive environments versus collaborative ones.
So competitive would be a hostile negotiation, or dealing with a rival at work.
Right. Intersexual rivalry is the biological term for it. The goal there is to establish rank and dominance. In that mode, you use exclusionary stillness. You become unreadable. You use cold reading, scanning them for weakness while giving them absolutely nothing. You have to be highly sensitive to hierarchy.
And collaborative.
That's intersexual or pair bonding. Dating or building a cohesive team. The goal is synchrony. You switch to warm stillness. Your facial muscles relax. You use mirroring, matching their posture, and even sharing breathing rhythms.
So you have to be able to switch gears. You can't just be Stone Cold Steve Austin all the time.
You have to transition from a transactional mindset to a party mindset. Vulnerability becomes the bridge. You drop the shield to let them in.
Okay, this all sounds great in theory, but let's be real for a minute. If I tried to do this right now, absolute stillness, precise head turns, I feel like I wouldn't look like James Bond. I'd look like a malfunctioning robot.
That is a very real risk. The sources warn against the uncanny valley of presence. If you eliminate all movement, you don't look charismatic. You look predatory or robotic.
Mask of stone.
Exactly. To avoid looking like a sociopath, you need the Duchenne microsmile, that tiny, genuine crinkle around the eyes to signal warmth. And you need to avoid the predatory smile. Staring without blinking is not seductive, it's threatening. You need peripheral softening, widening your gaze so you aren't drilling a hole in their forehead.
So how do we actually build this?
Yeah.
Because the sources say you can't just decide to have high-definition presence. You have to actively train it.
You have to build the hardware. The first concept is noise removal. You cannot add microsignals until you remove the noise.
And the specific drill for this sounds honestly pretty painful. The statue of salt.
It's deceptively simple. Can you stand for 10 minutes and eliminate the urge to move? No scratching that itch on your nose, no shifting your weight, no checking your phone.
10 minutes sounds easy until you actually try it. I tried sitting still for 2 minutes before the show, and I felt phantom vibrations in my pocket.
That is exactly the point. It reveals how much leakage you have. It trains you to override the impulse to fidget. Then there's the breath lock. Inhale, exhale, and pause at empty for 3 to 5 seconds. It trains temporal authority. You control when the next breath happens, not your anxiety. And single channel signaling.
What's that?
Practicing one specific micromotion like a brow lift and ensuring nothing else on your body moves when you do it. Total isolation.
The sources also mentioned a daily habit stack. I love practical stuff like this. What should we be doing in the morning?
Morning is about activating the vagus nerve. You can do that just by gargling water. It helps lock in that genetic calm. And practice ocular softening in the mirror, relaxing the eyes so you don't have that intense stare.
And during the workday?
Midday, pause for 10 seconds during task transitions. Before you open the next email or walk into the next meeting, reset your posture. Don't carry the physical tension of the last crisis into the next conversation.
And evening. This one struck me as really important for relationships.
Entropy prevention. They call it the silent night protocol. Try communicating with your partner only through micromotions for a period of time. Touch, a look. It prevents habituation and signal decay, where you just stop truly seeing each other because you're so used to their presence.
It sounds like a way to make the mundane feel high stakes again.
That is exactly the power of it.
So let's zoom out. Why should we care about mastering this? Is it really just about being the coolest person in the room?
I don't think so. I think it's a survival mechanism for the modern world. We are living in an era of constant noise. Everyone is shouting, everyone is performing, everyone is broadcasting on maximum volume all the time.
It's exhausting.
High-definition presence is about becoming a biological conductor. You master your own internal state to influence the nervous systems of others. You become the quiet eye of the storm.
And there was one final honest signal the sources mentioned that I really loved. Something called microgravity.
This is the ultimate tell. If you want to know who holds the power in a room or who is truly interested in you, look at the feet.
The feet.
If someone's toes are pointing directly at you, even if their body is turned away, even if they are talking to someone else, they are anchored to you.
Their brain is prioritizing you.
Exactly. It's microgravity.
I love that. It's like a secret language we're all speaking without even knowing it.
And once you learn the vocabulary, you cannot unsee it. You walk into a room and you see the currents of influence everywhere.
I want to leave everyone with a final provocative thought from the research on signal decay. In a world of constant noise and overperformance, the person who masters stillness becomes the loudest signal in the room. So the question for you to mull over is this. Are you broadcasting noise, or are you broadcasting high-definition presence?
That is the ultimate question.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We will catch you on the next one.